Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Go 24/7 podcast. Less than 24 hours ago, Glenn and I were talking to you about Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator hire, and everything it meant. 24 hours later, we come to you once again here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you might be catching this. We talk about Bryce Underwood, the all can do it all number one player in the country in the 2025 class, announces his commitment to LSU. Glenn, this is something that, dating back to that visit against Auburn, I think all of us, kind of left feeling, look, he's been on campus so many times. He got to experience what Tiger Stadium in Death Valley was at night. He got to get on the Jumbotron, at Tiger Stadium and get the full experience, man. And then we fast forward to January. We knew it could be a big day, and it has been as Bryce Underwood is committed to LSU. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely a big day. I mean, you go back a couple weeks here, we've been talking about it on our board a lot, writing about it a lot. We kind of felt like LSU could maybe go on this string of 5 stars. Obviously, starting with Dominic McKinley in the 2024 class, you're able to pick up a commitment from Harlan Berry early in the week as well, 5-star running back. And now you kind of cap it off here with, quite honestly, one of the best all-time commits in terms of just ranking and rating that LSU's ever pulled in here, and Bryce Underwood, the quarterback out of Bellevue in Michigan. This is an absolutely huge day, I think, for the future of the program. You go back and you think about all the big-time commits LSU's had over the years, the Leonard Fournettes of the world, just kind of run down the list there and pick any of them, and there's usually a common theme there, and there's usually the Derek Stingleys of the world too, and certainly Russell Shepard, but there's kind of a theme of being from Louisiana, being in the South, and keeping those guys closer to home. You had to go up north for this one, and I
Yeah.
think that's what makes this even all the more impressive is the job that Joe Sloan and obviously Brian Kelly did, Mike Denbrock when he was here, of just making this guy who's from up north in Michigan feel comfortable enough to come down south and play his college football here. The first couple of times LSU has had some success at quarterback, it's been via the transfer portal, obviously dating back to Joe Burrow. Another quarterback he pulled from up north, extending obviously to Jaden Daniels, and those two both winning Heisman trophies here in the last 5 years. This is going to be a real opportunity here now for LSU to get in a really talented player, a guy who obviously has immense potential, and you can build him up in your program for 2, 3, 4 years, and see if he can't help you kind of continue this trend of elite quarterback play that LSU for so long had been missing from its program, but really over the
Yeah.
last 5, 6 years has struck gold on a lot of different players. I think you see kind of the encouraging performance that Garrett Nussmeier had in the bowl game, and you feel really good about 2024, under his leadership, and certainly in 2025 if he elects to come back. But you kind of fast forward here and you look at what this potentially could look like in the next couple of years. You're looking at an offense that could be helmed by one of the highest graded quarterbacks really of any recruiting cycle that
Yeah.
24/7's had. I mean, they've obviously been grading these elite quarterback play for a while, and Underwood's right up there with, I think, a lot of the other highly graded quarterbacks that have come out of this recruiting rankings and services here over the last several years. So absolutely huge day. Huge props to Joe Sloan, to Brian Kelly, to that program, that offensive staff, for getting this done. And now you're looking here at a potential class that could be knocking on the door of a number one. They're ranked number one on other recruiting services. They're number two with us right now. But this is just the beginning. I mean, like you bring in these three guys in Underwood and Harlan Berry and DeCorian Moore, number one rated players at all their positions. You can really fuel this now going into having a whole year with those guys to help recruit other players, other pieces to this class, and that's really, really exciting to think about.
You talk about the quarterback position at LSU. I mean, my first year on the beat, but obviously have, watched LSU from afar. It's been kind of the position from, I would say, the 2010s until kind of Burrow got here, kind of, evaded that top talent to bring in through the high school ranks. You talk, and that was one thing, talking point I made of like, can they transition elite quarterback accumulation? Not just through the portal, but through the high school ranks. And then this is a big statement made by Joe Sloan and the entire offensive coaching staff. And I'll say this too, and it might turn into like a Joe Sloan appreciation clip, but I don't know, Glenn, if he's going to be the offensive coordinator. I mean, it would make sense. There, probably a lot of signs would point that way. But the you have to keep this guy on staff. Like if if you have to give him the co-OC title just to keep this guy, because the way that he recruits and develops, I mean, he is almost as valuable as an OC would be in terms of what he brings to the table. And so I think obviously a big part of that, and Underwood kind of mentioned it in his elongated commitment ceremony that he did, and we watched through Instagram Live. The what he means to him, and even Glenn, I remember, you and I are both on the sideline. Underwood was kind of, you could kind of tell that there was a special treatment kind of going on with Underwood. He was one of the first guys brought onto the field and kind of ushered away to another spot where I'm sure that they kind of, showcased more things for him that they could. Brian Kelly spent a lot of time with him. Joe Sloan came over and shook his hand, talked with the family. And, now that this is kind of public out here that Underwood is committed, if you're a member of our board, you know that when we kind of did this piece and I wrote this piece kind of that Sunday, I was standing near the contingency because Underwood was there with a lot of other Michigan highly touted players that I'm sure kind of opens not a pipeline, but opens up a door that maybe previously hadn't been there. And I said, I mentioned to one of the people in the traveling party, I said, you know, how hard is it like to get a kid who's being heavily recruited by Michigan? We know that was one of the finalists. They wanted to keep him in state. And I said, is it going to be pretty hard? And I expect the answer, to be kind of straightforward, coach speak answer of, yeah, it's going to be difficult. And this said person looked at me who was close with Underwood and said, do you see this place? It's not going to be as hard as people think. And by that time, Tiger Stadium was nearly full. The LSU band was kicking up the atmosphere. And we saw how Underwood enjoyed it. I think too, Glenn, my kind of thing is that the key in getting, and we're going to go into this 2025 class, but when you get Harlem Berry, who's a Louisiana guy, you get to Corian Moore, and now you bring in Underwood, it kind of, for me, lessens the blow of the naysayers that might say, okay, he still has 2 years to sign. He's still got a year to sign. You're gonna have to keep recruiting, and of course you're going to have to. But when you have, and you can say, hey, we've got a 5-star receiver coming in, and we've got highly touted receivers on the roster, and then versa. Now the recruitment of Decorian Moore. Well, hey, we've got the top quarterback in the country. You want to play with him. I don't want to say it solidifies or nail in the coffin for any of these guys, but I think it for LSU fans that might be turning their attention to something to be concerned about. It definitely lessens my concern level, knowing that if we stack it so much, these guys, there's not going to be maybe a better opportunity elsewhere for them to go play.
Yeah, and look, anything can happen here. I mean, like LSU is going to have to stay on this thing. You just saw with Dylan Raiola from this class. Going from Georgia to Nebraska, that was a legacy move. So those aren't really comparable situations, but it can happen.
Yeah.
And Michigan is the hometown school is going to keep pushing here over the next year. But I think from just everything that we've seen and heard, this guy is going to be a pretty firm LSU lean. This is going to be, a situation here where in most years, and I would expect that to carry on this year as well, that a guy like Underwood's going to be able to come in and help you recruit some of those other guys that you're looking to bring on into the class and into the program. That's why you commit this early if you're a quarterback of that caliber, because you'd like some time here to kind of assess where this class is, help out in any way that you can. I would expect that he's on campus a lot more going forward. This is going to be a really, really fun, just kind of next year to kind of follow not only his development as a player, but certainly the impact that he can have on recruiting here at LSU. And it's a big time deal. It's a big deal that you kind of got such a big core, at least on the offensive side of the ball. You've got such a big core of this group, locked up already in January, and now you can kind of fuel those guys to kind of help you bring in some other players where you see fit. I mean, there's so many other talented players here that they're going to be going after. You look in state and you look at a guy like Devin Harper, the offensive tackle, Jabore Antoine, the cornerback, is a top 100, 120 player in the country. That's just in-state guys. I mean, there's going to be a ton of out-of-state guys that I think you hear more and more about LSU over the next several months because of the cachet of the high caliber recruits that they're bringing in. I mean, you're telling me there's not an offensive lineman, a top offensive lineman out there in the country that wouldn't want to go block for Bryce Underwood and Harlan Berry and kind of help this offense fuel kind of go into the future here. Brad Davis kind of coaching him up. I mean, that would be a really, really positive thing for me if I was a recruit and seeing the talent that's here. But you've got to go finish, and you've got to continue to recruit these guys. I think probably the most immediate next step is to figure out the coaching situation. I'm kind of in the camp of just get this thing done and promote Joe Sloan right now. I think that is very much going to be on the table. Maybe you slap a co-OC thing on with Cortez Hankton and throw a bunch of money at him to get him to stay as well. But I do think that there's an element here of Brian Kelly. You've got to go fill a lot of these position coaches now, but you got to take care of the guys that are on your staff too. And I think that should be a priority as well. Wouldn't be surprised if we hear something in the coming days about Joe Sloan and about Cortez Hankton, about Frank Wilson, a lot of these guys that are up for extensions or raises. I mean, this offense is going to be a really, it's in a really good place in large part because of the work that those guys have been doing for the last couple of years. And this is a commitment and a signing here, or I should just say a commitment, but this is an addition here that doesn't just take several months. I mean, this, even going back to last summer, when he was on campus, I believe early in the summer, then he came back, I think, for the Splash event. He was here for a couple of camps as well, and actually participated in the camps with Joe Sloan watching him. So this is something that takes years and years of recruiting and building those relationships up. I would expect LSU to continue to recruit him hard here over the next year, get his input on guys that he thinks could come and help impact program, guys up north that he's heard about or that he's played against or played with in various 7-on-7 tournaments or just camps that he's met guys at. That's the other angle here, is that a lot of these guys are going to be at camps over the next several months. And that's when you really can start talking and fueling a lot of these conversations as well. So if there's a program out there that's hotter on the recruiting trail, I don't know it. And I do think that LSU is right up there at the top with just the momentum and the confidence, and that this something like this fuels kind of going into the meat of your offseason here, where you're not only hoping to close on a couple more, maybe a Terry Bussey in 2024, but also continuing to build this class out in 2025 that looks like it could be right up there with the best of them in the country.
Yeah, we talk about the potential of the 2025 class, and you mentioned so many names. And I even go back once again to that visit weekend, a guy like Nashawn Montgomery, 3-4-star receiver out of Florida. I mean, you could kind of see they were setting up, hey, let's have a lot of the guys that we really, really like in the 2025 class on campus that weekend with a Bryce Underwood. And now once this commitment hits in January, I guarantee you the next thing that Underwood's doing is, hitting some of these guys up, like you said, when they get into 7-on-7, when they get into a camps, when a guy like Underwood, I would imagine this is a guy who's going to be in the Elite 11, probably an Elite 11 finalist, when he gets into this, recruiting mode. And Glenn, it's a lot of what we saw with Colin Hurley. Like when Colin Hurley went on these 7-on-7 trips, when he played, in different circuits and stuff like that, he also helped recruit. And I'm with you. I don't think there's a more exciting time. And I saw a tweet, and I actually quote tweeted it right before we hopped on the podcast. I don't know if there's been a crazier week. I kind of forgot that LSU played a bowl game earlier this week. Like it's been a wild, wild week here, and a lot of fun.
It feels like 3 weeks ago that I was in Tampa for this bowl game, but it was in actuality 5 days ago. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, and the other thing here that I didn't really bring up on the onset is that when's the next time we're going to record a pod where I'm in my home in Baton Rouge and you're in your home in Baton Rouge. It really seems like it's been 3 or 4 weeks since we've done that. So yeah, it's been a crazy kind of hectic, holiday season, but wouldn't have it any other way. LSU's been on a lot of these guys for a while now, and I'll just be really interested to see kind of what comes of this, because there's a next phase now that you have this top end group coming in. Now you kind of fuel the rest of it going forward, and we know that Keelan Moses, the linebacker commit in 2025, has already been a huge voice for this class. I'll be very interested to see if Harlan Berry has a voice in this class as well, and trying to help lure some of these in-state guys to the group. Maybe DeCorian Moore out in Texas has some influence on
Yes.
some of those guys. I mean, Duncanville has a well of talent every year. So we'll see if that kind of comes of anything. But strong momentum, strong day, strong week for LSU here on the recruiting trail, and we'll see if this turns into something that won't have some more big news pop sooner than later.
Yeah, another name to keep watching. And Sonny Ship already has a crystal ball prediction. You mentioned running back in-state guy James Simon, who has
Yep.
been on campus so many times. So you get the top two running backs in the state of Louisiana. That's obviously massive. And like Sonny and I've talked about on our recruiting podcast, and Glenn, I know you know this as well. Not only this 2025 class can be special for LSU, but when you get into the 2025 and the 2026 classes in the state of Louisiana, this is where championships are built. Like this is you've moved in, you've stabilized the program. That's a word that Brian Kelly used, in his pressers over the bowl practices and everything. And now is the time to take off. And like you said, Glenn, I don't know if there's a hotter program. The momentum that you gained from a guy like Garrett Nussmeier in that bowl game 5 days ago, which feels like a month ago, and then now to land the top quarterback in the country, man. Those I know there's not a lot of time for a break, but at some point, these guys on staff and recruiting staffers and player personnel guys have to take a breather at some point here. But man, what a way to kick off the 2024 new year here with LSU. But it's going to be an exciting time, and it's a great reason for you to stay tuned and sign up now. 60% off annual VIP membership. And look, I know I might be a little biased here, but I think that we have had some of the best coverage here that you could possibly want covering LSU over the past, week or two. Really kicked it up. Sonny's done a fantastic job having a pulse on recruiting. We've had great conversations on the message board, a great community. And then, hey, come join us. 60% off that annual VIP membership. Take advantage of that deal today. Recruiting, coaching search,
Yeah.
whole 9 yards.
Lots
And
of position coaches here that we still could find out about in the coming days to the next week. I would imagine a lot of this gets wrapped up sooner than later. I think they have a pretty good idea of who they want to go after, who they want to target, but certainly there are going to be ongoing conversations with Brian Kelly and Blake Baker, and any news that we kind of hear about, and we'll certainly pass it along
yeah.
and give you guys all the VIP intel that you need as we look forward to 2024 now.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a ton of fun. And if you want to know how to join it, you don't know where to go, either type in Go247 on your web browser, or you can click the link whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple or down on YouTube as well. We appreciate all of you on the YouTube channel. That climb to 4,000 subscribers, which has just been phenomenal to watch that number climb. And Glenn and I appreciate that as well as Sonny. So we'll catch you next time here on the Go247 podcast. Hopefully, both in our humble abodes back in Baton Rouge. Hopefully nothing crazy breaks when I'm in my flight back from San Antonio. And if you're checking out the channel, we're going to have some great interviews with some of the guys that were here in San Antonio. They would spend some time with together talking about that. And man, that was a really, really fun event. But we will catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.